Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of FPL Fanzone. I will be doing a double upload today. There was another video talking more about the shock Game Week 25 double announcement which came in overnight here in Australia. But today in this video I'm going to talk a little bit more around the fixtures for this week, some of the upcoming news from the incoming press conferences, any injuries, and then look a little bit at changing strategy from triple captain to assistant manager, what I'm going to be doing in my team, as I've already went early with my 3 transfers and I've got no money in the bank to actually buy a manager. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we do that, don't forget to join the FPL Fanzone League. It's free to join. The code is on the screen. The first prize is a Premier League shirt. Let me know if you can catch up and beat Tavish, who has been top of the table now. I know Peter is only a couple of points behind. So there's, get your name on the screen if you're leading the league, and a Premier League shirt of your choice at the end of the season if you win the league. So don't forget to do that. Also, like and subscribe if you're new around here, and then hit that notification bell if you want updates on future videos. Without further ado, let's get started. So just a quick note, as I said, I have released a video about this already, but there is a shock Double Gameweek 25 announcement. So the teams that qualify to the final of the EFL Cup or the Carabao Cup on Thursday this week will double in Game Week 25, so next game week. Now, that caveat is Newcastle won't double even if they make it to the final. Their Game Week 29 game will be played later on. But if Liverpool, Tottenham or Arsenal get through to the final, then them and their opponents for Game Week 29 will actually play that game in Game Week 25. So if Liverpool go through, they will double in against Wolves and Aston Villa in Game Week 25. And then Aston Villa would double against Ipswich and Liverpool. If Spurs maintain their lead and qualify to the final, then it would be Spurs and Fulham that double in Game Week 25, and Fulham would have Nottingham Forest and Tottenham at home, and then Spurs would have Manchester United at home and then Fulham away. The other option, of course, is Arsenal overturn their 2-0 deficit in the first leg against Newcastle. If Arsenal make the final of the League Cup, they will then double, as will Chelsea in Game Week 25, alongside either Liverpool and Spurs fixture. So if Arsenal get through, there will be 4 teams that are doubling in Game Week 25. If Arsenal don't go through to the final, Newcastle do, then there'll only be 2 teams doubling in Game Week 25. So Chelsea would have Brighton away and Arsenal away, and then Arsenal would have Leicester away and Chelsea at home. So let's have a look at what that means for your teams. So let's have a quick look at some of the major news from the press conference updates. David Raya, I know a lot of people have Raya as a goalkeeper, is an injury doubt at the moment. Now, I do expect him to play, but the fact that he was mentioned in the press conference is a concern. So if you've got Raya and say Fabianski, you've now got 2 players that are potentially not goalkeepers that are not going to play. So there may be an option there to use that free transfer to move to someone like a Pickford or an Alisson, depending on your situation. Pickford obviously has the double game week this week, as does Alisson. The other one as well, which I know a lot of people have, is Sanchez, the Chelsea goalkeeper. And Enzo Maresca mentioned in his press conference that there's a potential that Jorgensen could play in goal. So Sanchez has been making a lot of mistakes recently, so there is a real chance of rotation there, and that he could lose his number 1 spot and Jorgensen would take over. So just something to, again, take into consideration, depending on who your backup goalkeeper is. If you don't have a playing backup, it may be worth looking at moving Sanchez out of your team and bringing in either, Sells or Pickford or one of those other goalkeepers that are scoring lots of points at the moment. There's not a lot of news in defence at the moment. No major shocks that I read when I was looking through the press conferences. That may have changed if any late news has come through, but at time of recording there was none. When it comes to midfield, interestingly, Diogo Jota is back in training. Now, of course, he's been out with an injury. He can't seem to stay fit. but that does mean that potentially he could take minutes away from Gakpo, especially has a really busy schedule over the next couple of weeks with League Cup, FA Cup, and obviously doubles in both game weeks potentially as well. So with all of that, there could be a potential risk, minutes risk for Gakpo and for Diaz, because it also looks like Nunes is back in training as well. So just with those Liverpool assets, there is now potential minutes risk for those midfielders and forward spots. But right now, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just something to consider as we move forward. The other big news coming through was that Eze is now injured. And a lot of people went on to the Crystal Palace for their good run of fixtures. What this does mean is that obviously for those Sarr owners, that his minutes is likely to increase. I know he'd been coming off early in a lot of games. So Eze is now out and a major doubt for this week with an injured foot. So it does likely mean that Sarr will get more minutes in that midfield role. And then lastly, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has a hamstring injury, and I know a lot of people were looking to bring him in potentially for the double game week this week. So it does mean that Ndai would be a better option now. Obviously, he's very cheap, he is on penalties, and is likely to get all of the minutes given that Calvert-Lewin is out for the next couple of weeks. So they're just some of the updates from the press conferences on players that I know people are looking to bring in this week. Let me know in the comments below if there's anyone else that you want me to answer any questions you have. Next up is the captain's choice for this week, and I had my triple captain on Salah before the double game week 25 announcement. When you're looking at the captains, when you've got a double game week, it makes sense to use those players. One, because you're getting double appearance points, so they're getting 2 points twice. If they play above 60 minutes, you get double bonus points. So if they're getting any bonus points, someone like Salah can get 2 or 3 bonus points. You're going to get double of those because not only are they playing, you're not getting double points for being the captain, but they're playing 2 games, so there's twice as much chance. And then, of course, any attacking returns as well. So first and foremost, obviously Liverpool being the top of the league, best team in the league at the moment. I hate saying that as an Arsenal fan, but obviously with Bournemouth away and Everton away, 2 away fixtures which are tough. You've got Salah, Gakpo and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Diaz, if you have him, I would have him in there as well as options. All of those are great options. If you were playing a triple captain on Salah this week, I'm totally not against that. I was going to do that myself. And then, of course, the last one is Iliman Ndiaye from Everton. You could potentially go for Pickford, but I just don't particularly like that Liverpool away game as a way for them to get clean sheets. So right now it would be focus on the Liverpool asset, whichever one you prefer, you think is going to get the most points over the next, over those 2 games. Salah obviously being the obvious one given his current form for the rest of this season. So no major surprises there, but especially on a double game week, always try and pick a player who's got good fixtures and has good attacking returns, because obviously you're likely to get double of those as well. So here's a quick look back at my game week 23. It was a really good week for me. 74 points in the end, 270,000 rank rise. So I am slowly climbing way back from the depths of 5 million when I was in game week 7. I'm now up to 1.4 million in the world. And I think I'm about 11 points away from hitting that top million. So I'm getting there slowly. Obviously, I want to get into that top 100k by the end of the season. There's a long way to go. But with the news this week, it has thrown up a few spanners. So good points for me across the board. Pickford 5 points, Gabriel 7 points, Hall 2 points, Trent Alexander-Arnold 5 points. Unfortunately, his clean sheet was wiped out so late at the end of that game. Could have been another double-digit haul there. Palmer with 2 points. He's been really disappointing recently, but he's got a good run of fixtures coming up, so I'm not too worried about him at the moment. Rodgers with the 1 point, but then of course goes and gets a hat-trick in the Champions League midweek. So happy to keep him in my team. He is, a budget midfielder that does allow me to do rotation. So happy for that. Salah got 8 points, obviously, as my captain doubled to 16. Gordon got me 5 points, so again, happy there with attacking return. Gakpo was the standout with 16 points. Really glad that I bought him in early for the Ipswich game, and then obviously he's got the double this week and now potentially the double the week after as well. So really happy that I jumped on him when I did. His price has risen in that time. 16 points was amazing. Isak, 13 points. Another great return from him as well. The fixtures, okay, he's got Fulham this week, but then they start to get a lot harder from there onwards. And then Chris Wood with a 2-pointer. The shock result, of course, was Bournemouth smashing Nottingham Forest 5-0. On the bench, another 12 points on the bench, but outside of Kirkes, which I really wouldn't have played. I just felt it was a swing fixture. The surprise was obviously the shock result there. But I had 3 free transfers, 0.1 million in the bank. And spoiler alert, I went early. So in order to capture price rises, I really wanted to get Mbeumo for his upcoming run. I know that Newcastle's fixtures are going to get very, very difficult after game week 24. They've got Man City, Nottingham Forest, and then Liverpool, I think. So, and then they're going to potentially blank in game week 29 if they beat Arsenal in the second leg of that EFL Cup. So for them, you know, they're going to blank in 29. They've got some tough fixtures, you know, playing against top of the table. So I wanted to jump off to Mbeumo. The problem is with all of the players that I sold, I had a huge amount of money banked in them because they'd risen a lot in price, and therefore I wasn't getting a huge return. I was only getting half of that profit. So obviously you only get 0.1 for every 0.2 that they rise. So with Gordon, I didn't sell him for 7.7. I think I sold him for like 7.4. With Aina, I didn't sell him for 5.4. I think I only sold him for like 5.1. So there was obviously lots of money value lost. I'd gained the amount, but obviously the value is now gone from the team. So I had to make 3 transfers. The first one was Aina. Wasn't particularly happy about selling him, but he freed up the money to get the other 2 transfers in. So I bought in Mikalenko, who's got the double this game week, which makes perfect sense. Some good fixtures moving forward. For Elanga, I bought in Kluivert again, who's looking really, really great at the moment. Now I know Otara got the hat-trick. Kluivert did get a goal and an assist, and he had a goal ruled out, so he could have got another double-digit haul for there as well. He's on great run of form. Now he's got Liverpool at home this week, which is a tough fixture, but then after that he's got a run of 3 or 4 green fixtures, so I'm really happy to have him in. He's already risen in price as well. And then Mbeumo, as I mentioned, is who is in for Anthony Gordon. He's got Tottenham at home this week. Tottenham are all over the place at the moment, conceding goals, not scoring goals, and that Brentford attack is just, you know, relentless at the moment, whether it's Mbeumo or Vissa. Both of those are getting regular attacking returns. And then after that, they've got a really good run of fixtures as well. So I jumped on them. I got a price rise. I got 0.3 million in rise this week just from those 3 players alone. They've all risen in price. So was happy I did it. And then I was obviously coming up to the deadline. I was quite happy with my team. Thought everything was good to go with Salah on triple captain. And then, of course, the big announcement came overnight. And that has now thrown a huge spanner in the works. So as it stands now, my preference would be to switch to assistant manager. I've got it. I've deactivated my triple captain. It was on Salah. The fixtures weren't great, but Salah is amazing. He's on an incredible run of form. Liverpool are really, really great at the moment. And so I am looking at now cancelling the triple captain and bringing in the assistant manager. Now the challenge, of course, is that I've made all of my free transfers and I've got no money in the bank. Now when you're getting your first assistant manager, it doesn't require a transfer. You get the manager for free, but you do need to have the money in the bank. So I'm going to have to take a -4 to bring in a manager for this week. So where do I free up the funds? You know, looking at the fixtures, I've got double Everton, who both have double fixtures. I've got 3 Liverpool, triple Liverpool, who both have double fixtures. I've got 5 players with doubles, which is amazing. If I want to go slot, then obviously need to get rid of one of my Liverpool players because you can only have 3 from any one team, and that includes the manager. If I want to go for Moyes, then I could have 6 doublers this week, which would be brilliant for that as well. And then I can look at moving forward and changing that as well. Now, as I mentioned, I have released another video today that talks about the challenges of the double and the chip strategy for that as well. So feel free to check that out. I'll drop a link in the comments below if you want to have a look at that one. So let's look at what are my options for bringing in an assistant manager for game week 24. So for game week 24, if you want to bring in, there's two options that I can go. The first one is the safe route. It gives me a top manager, either Slot or Arteta, for the next 3 game weeks. So the top 2 teams in the league, they've got good fixtures. Slot potentially has 2 doubles. He definitely has one this week, and he has the potential of one for game week 25 as well. The challenge there is that I am tripled up on Liverpool, so I would have to sell one of my Liverpool options. Now, obviously, I'm not going to sell Salah because of the form he's in at the moment. So do I sell Trent or do I sell Gakpo, bearing in mind that I need to free up 1.5 million in order to do that? And obviously, if I look at that strategy going slot, and then Arteta, I do need one free transfer later on in between game week 25 and 26. Where I am tempted at the moment is the high upside route. So bringing in David Moyes for the double this week. So I have 6 doublers for this week, which would be amazing. So 2 Everton players and 1 Everton manager, and then the 3 Liverpool players. Leicester at home feels like a good fixture. Everton, I've got a little bit of a new manager bounce. They could potentially get the win there. And then obviously they've got the table bonus for that Liverpool game. It's the last Merseyside derby for Everton before they move to their new ground. So there's a good story there. It is a derby, so you never quite know. Unfortunately, we do expect Liverpool to win that game, but there is a chance of an upset, in which case the table bonus would kick in and the extra points for the win or the draw. Then I would have to take a free transfer into game week 25 and switch from Moyes to Emery. Now, if Liverpool go through, then obviously Aston Villa will double in game week 25. Now, they've got Ipswich at home, so very much like Moyes, they've got that first game, which feels like an absolute banker to get the manager points. And then, of course, the second game feels like a free shot, if you will, at a table bonus. Now, Villa are a good team. Can they beat Liverpool on their day? Yes. Is it likely? No. So it is a very, very tough fixture. But again, there is that chance of an upset, and you could get the table bonus for the draw, which is an extra 6 points, or for the win, which is an extra 10 points, which could be massive. So it feels like both of those table bonuses for game week 24 and 25 are long shots, but they could you could see the narrative of either of those happening. Also, that does require that Liverpool go through and beat Tottenham in the semi-finals in the midweek. If that's not the case, I'd likely have to switch to someone like Silva. So Fulham would double instead of Emery. Now that would require me to have 1.1 million and not 0.8 in the bank. So that's why the red is around that second fixture, because it's not guaranteed at this stage. And then lastly, in game week 26, there's a nice option there for to move to Crystal Palace. So another free transfer. So this would actually require 2 free transfers over the next 2 weeks. Move to Glasner. He's got Fulham away. It feels like one of those fixtures that could go either way. And if it goes the way of Crystal Palace, then you've got another table bonus there as well. So it's a lot riskier, but the upside is massive. If those 3 upsets all come off, then there's an extra 30 points on top, which would make a huge difference. Would almost move me into the top, 500k from where I am at the moment. So that's where I'm looking at the moment. I would love to go slot Arteta. Just feels easy, feels comfortable. You expect them to be regular points coming through. The challenge is it does require me to get rid of one of my Liverpool players, and that just feels like a strange move to me, like a sideways move, especially if it's costing me points to do it as well. But let me know in the comments below, who's your choice? Are you, first and foremost, are you going assistant manager? Are you sticking with triple captain and going with Salah? Of course, the other option is hold off this week. Triple captain Salah, see what happens in the EFL Cup, work out who's doubling next week, and then maybe activate assistant manager next week. Doesn't cost me the -4. I get to use my triple captain, which will be a slight differential this week, and then obviously have the more information on exactly who's doubling in game week 25, and then I can use my free transfer to free up those funds without taking the -4. So that is a real option for me on that. But now let's have a quick look at which players I would need to sell in order to get to either of these two options. So first and foremost, if I want to get to slot, my gut feel is that I would sell Trent Alexander-Arnold. I just think that the upside for Gakpo at the moment is huge, given that he got the double 2 goals last week. He did play in the Champions League midweek, which was a bit of a concern, but he did come off early. And also the other concern is that Jota and Nunes are now back in training. So it could mean by the time we get to game week, the second game in game week 25, there may be rotations risk. But given the fact that they have, I think, Plymouth Argyle in the FA Cup, they'll probably rotate their team there and bring in the others to give them minutes. And they have Man City in game week 26. So I'm not too worried about Gakpo's minutes, but it is a concern. There is an option potentially move down. I just didn't really like the options of moving Gakpo down, taking a -4 to move him out when he's got, 2 fixtures this week. Wolves away, Wolves at home in game week 25, which feels like a good option for more goals, but also the potential double there as well. So Trent feels like an option to move away. I feel like defensively it's a harder run than it is for the attacking options on that. But let me know in the comments below if you agree with that. So if I was to move Trent Alexander-Arnold out, I would bring in Anthony Robinson, free up the money and allow me to get Arne Slot. Obviously I can reverse that once I get the money back from Arne Slot when it finishes in 3 weeks time. And obviously by having 1.5 million, it allows me to move to any manager because their prices won't change between now and the end of the season. So I could just go to any manager at any point. I'm just using free transfers after that. Now, if I want to go to the Moyes route and get the double game week this week, as I said, they'll give me 6 players on doubles this week, then there's 2 options here. Now, the first one is to go from Alexander Isak down to Johan Wissa. Now, Isak's fixtures are going to get significantly more difficult from game week 25 when they've got Man City away. I think in game week 26 they've got Nottingham Forest, and then in game week 27 they've got Liverpool, and then they blank in game week 29 if they get through to the EFL Cup final. So I don't mind moving off Isak for that period and then just bringing him back in game week 30. And at the same time, I could bring in Johan Wissa, who's got Tottenham, and we already talked about the defensive woes at the moment, West Ham, and then Leicester. So a really good run of fixtures. And then obviously once that assistant managership runs out, I could use the money back to bring back Alexander Isak for that as well. The other option, which is less exciting, but probably a little bit more stable for my team, would be to take out Chris Wood, and then to bring in Raul Jimenez. Now the challenge with that is it only gives me 0.8 million, which is exactly the amount I need, of 0.5 to get to Moyes, but then 0.8 gets me to Emery and then to Glasner in game week 26. If Liverpool don't get through to the final, then I need to find another 1.1 because I need to move to Silva, who's 1.1 million. So that one comes with an element of risk. Obviously, Chris Wood's fixtures get very difficult after the next 2, so I'm happy to kind of move off him now. It's a shame, really, because I'd like to have gone from Chris Wood down to Wissa. Now, Chris Wood is 7.1 and Wissa is 6.3, which is 0.8. But because I got Chris Wood so cheap, I think I'm only selling him for like 7. I'm not selling him for anywhere near 7.1, so therefore I'm not getting the 0.8. I think only selling for like 6.5, so I only get 0.2 back, so I couldn't even afford Moyes on that sense. So gut feel is I'd like to do number 3 because it gives me the upside with all the table bonus. The challenge is obviously there's a risk there that if Liverpool don't overturn that deficit against Tottenham in the EFL Cup, I can't move to Silva, and it does mean that I could just move to Emery and still get that good game that he's got. But yeah, there's so much going on, and I know I'm rambling a little bit here, and obviously there's a lot of data overload. There's so many variables in this, but this is where, you know, I've been starting to think about this since 1 a.m. this morning. It's now 3:30 in the afternoon here in Australia, and I still can't make a final decision on what this is going to look like. But let's have a quick look at what my team would look like if I made the option 3. So right now, my gut feel is to take option 3, hope that Liverpool get through to the final. 1, just because I'm an Arsenal fan and I don't want Tottenham to be in a final. 2, because it would allow me to get to Emery and a potential table bonus for a slightly cheaper price. And it would mean I would take out Chris Wood for a -4, bring in Raul Jimenez. Then my dilemma is, do I play Jimenez or do I pay Kluivert, who's at home to Liverpool, who's on a great run of form at the moment, but it's a tougher decision for benching headache. But it does allow me to bring in Moyes, who gets the double game week this week as well. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment. It hasn't been finalised, so it's a tough choice right now. Just be careful. One thing that I've been seeing on the social media channels is once you've made your first selection and brought your manager in, you cannot change them, or you can change them before the deadline, but it will cost you a transfer every time. It's not like a wild card when you can unlimitedly change your manager before the deadline. Whoever you pick first is your assistant manager, and it will cost you a transfer to change them even this game week. So just be careful, make sure you select the right manager first so that you don't waste any extra transfers on changing them at the last minute. I hope this has helped. I am still all over the place on this as well, but let me know in the comments below, what are you doing? Are you sticking with your current strategy? Because there is obviously a chance that I do that as well. Don't overthink this. I don't have all of the data on who's doubling. I could just use my triple captain this week, bring in an assistant manager next week using a free transfer, and therefore not taking the -4, still getting a double for whichever manager I want to move on, and then get there the third week as well. So a lot to take in. Lots of variables. Apologies for the ramble. Let me know what you're doing in the comments below. So once again, everyone, massive thank you for watching FPL Fanzone. We are seeing the subscriber numbers slowly creep up now. I'd love to get to 300 before the end of the season. So if you are watching and you are new around here, you haven't subscribed yet, it's free to do, but it massively helps the channel out. Hit that like button if you found this useful, despite my rambles. Leave a comment on what you're doing or any questions that you have. I will be keeping an eye on those and coming back to you before the deadline. And may all of your arrows be green.